Samantha Carter stepped into the first-class cabin of Horizon Air with a quiet confidence, her hand gripping a sleek leather briefcase, ready for what she thought would be a routine flight from Chicago to Los Angeles. She was dressed in a sharp blazer, her presence commanding yet approachable, a reflection of her role as the trailblazing black CEO of Horizon Air. But as she moved toward her seat, a sharp, entitled voice sliced through the hum of the cabin. "I need this whole row to stretch out," barked a man in his late 60s, flinging a navy blanket across two seats like he was claiming territory. He glanced up at Samantha with a smug smirk. "You can find another seat, sweetheart, if you even belong up here." Samantha's composure held firm, though a fire sparked beneath her calm exterior. "This is my seat," she said evenly, holding up her digital boarding pass on her phone. The man, Walter Grayson, barely flicked his eyes toward it before scoffing. "You're confused, lady," he snapped. "People like me paid for this space. Do yourself a favor and move." In an instant, the first-class cabin turned electric with tension. Whispers rippled among the passengers, some pulling out their phones to record the standoff. No one spoke up, but the air buzzed with the unspoken clash unfolding in the plush surroundings. This wasn't just about a seat. It was a battle over respect, dignity, and fairness at 30,000 feet. And Samantha Carter wasn't just any passenger. She was the woman running the airline they were on. What would happen when this poised, determined leader refused to back down? Samantha Carter, the celebrated CEO of Horizon Air, moved down the aisle with purpose, her steps steady despite the long day she'd had. She'd just come from a high-stakes board meeting in Chicago, her mind already on a critical investor pitch in LA later that day. Reaching seat 2A, she set down her slim carry-on, planning to review her slides during the flight. But before she could settle in, Walter Grayson's voice cut through again, dripping with irritation. "I said I need both seats to lie down. Keep moving." Startled, Samantha turned to face him. Walter, a white man in his late 60s, stood with an air of unearned authority, his tailored suit doing little to mask the contempt in his eyes. Without waiting for her response, he spread his blanket over seats 2A and 2B, as if the matter was settled. The cabin, usually a haven of quiet luxury, grew heavy with unease. Passengers stole glances, their curiosity piqued. Samantha met Walter's gaze, her calm masking the outrage building inside. With a voice clear enough for nearby passengers to hear, she said, "Excuse me, seat 2A is mine. I reserved it. Here's my boarding pass." She held up her phone, the screen glowing with proof. Walter didn't bother looking. Crossing his arms, he let out a mocking chuckle. "People like you don't belong in first class," he sneered, his words laced with venom. Gasps and frowns spread among the passengers, a few discreetly aiming their phones to capture the moment. In seconds, the cabin's tranquility shattered, replaced by a charged silence. Samantha took a steadying breath, her resolve hardening. She wouldn't let Walter's blatant prejudice push her aside. What started as a simple seat dispute had escalated into a fight for respect and equality, with every eye in first class watching. Samantha stood firm, waiting for Walter's next move, knowing this was about far more than a single seat. It was about dignity, and she was ready to defend it. Samantha held up her boarding pass again, her voice steady but firm. "This seat is mine." Walter's sneer deepened. "People like you need to know your place," he shot back, his words cutting through the cabin like a blade. The atmosphere grew thick, almost suffocating. Passengers leaned forward, some recording, others whispering in disbelief. Samantha's gaze never wavered, her presence radiating strength. Walter Grayson, a retired real estate mogul from the Chicago suburbs, studied her with a mix of scorn and curiosity. He was used to getting his way, always had. As a man who'd built a fortune flipping properties, Walter saw the world through a lens of power, wealth, and privilege. To him, Samantha's defiance was an affront, especially from a black woman daring to challenge him. Her poise unnerved him, chipping away at his usual confidence. Leaning closer, his voice low and menacing, he said, "Let's be clear. This is my space. I paid good money to relax, not to deal with people like you." His words, sharp and deliberate, stunned the cabin. Passengers exchanged uneasy looks, some shaking their heads in disgust, but Walter was unfazed, thriving on the discomfort he caused. Samantha, however, stood unshaken. She knew this fight wasn't just about her. It was for every person who'd ever been dismissed or disrespected. Raised in a modest Detroit neighborhood, Samantha had clawed her way to the top, overcoming barriers of race and gender. She'd faced men like Walter before, those who saw her as less because of her skin or her roots. Each time she chose to stand tall, and, "Mr. Grayson," she said, her voice soft but commanding, using his name to show she knew exactly who he was. "I've asked you respectfully to return my seat. I expect the same respect for everyone on this flight." Walter laughed, loud enough for the whole cabin to hear. "Respect? You're playing the victim card, Miss Carter. Typical." His taunt pushed the tension to a breaking point. Passengers shifted uncomfortably, their anger palpable, but no one stepped in under the weight of Walter's arrogance. Samantha's eyes burned with resolve. She made a silent vow, even if it meant grounding this flight, she wouldn't back down. This was about justice, and she was prepared to see it through. As the standoff intensified, Flight Attendant Sarah Thompson stepped forward, her professional smile masking her unease. "Sir, we need to stick to assigned seats," she said gently, addressing Walter. He turned on her, his face twisting with irritation. "I have a medical condition," he barked. "I'm not moving." His words landed like a slap, testing everyone's patience. Sarah hesitated, glancing at Samantha with a mix of sympathy and frustration. As a veteran attendant, Sarah was skilled at diffusing conflicts, but Walter's behavior was on another level. He turned first class into his personal fiefdom, bending the rules to suit his whims. Seeing Sarah's discomfort, Walter smirked, relishing his temporary victory. Raised in a wealthy North Shore family, he'd been catered to his entire life, taught that his status put him above others, especially people like Samantha and Sarah, whom he dismissed without a second thought. Sarah stepped back, her apologetic glance meeting Samantha's. She couldn't force Walter to move if he claimed a health issue, though everyone saw through his excuse. The cabin buzzed with whispers of outrage. "Who does this guy think he is?" one passenger muttered. "There's no justifying that attitude," another added. Walter heard them but didn't care, his posture growing more defiant as he spread his blanket wider, daring Samantha to act. Samantha, though furious, kept her cool. She knew reacting impulsively would play into Walter's hands. With the poise of a CEO who'd navigated countless crises, she waited for the right moment, her mind racing with strategy. Just then, a voice broke through the tension. "Hold on, aren't you Samantha Carter, the CEO of Horizon Air?" The words, spoken by a young tech entrepreneur in a nearby seat, sent a jolt through the cabin. Heads turned, eyes widening with awe. Even Walter faltered, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. But he quickly recovered, his scowl returning. "CEO or not, I don't care," he snapped, raising his voice. "She's not making me move." His defiance drew sharp looks from passengers, who now saw Walter for what he was, a man clinging to privilege in the face of reason. Samantha, however, remained calm, her gaze steady. She knew men like Walter couldn't be swayed with words alone. Sometimes, authority had to speak louder. With a subtle smile, she stepped back and said, "Then we'll see how this plays out." Her words, quiet but loaded, hung in the air like a challenge. Passengers sensed the shift. This was no longer just a personal dispute. It was a test of values, and Samantha Carter was not backing down. Samantha turned slightly, her movements deliberate. Unseen by Walter, she pulled out her phone and sent a coded message, Operation Blue Horizon. This was a discreet protocol she'd developed with Horizon Air's tech team to handle emergencies that threatened the airline's values. Within moments, Walter's phone lost its Wi-Fi signal. He frowned, jabbing at the screen, but the no connection alert mocked him. A man used to instant solutions. Walter felt a surge of frustration. He was cut off. No assistant, no lawyer, no influence. The cabin watched quietly, some passengers hiding satisfied smiles. Walter's earlier arrogance had made him his own worst enemy. Flight attendants, Sarah and Michael Chen, the lead crew member, exchanged a glance. Their devices pinged with confirmation Blue Horizon was active. They knew to keep Walter isolated digitally, preventing further disruption. Walter's grip tightened on his phone, his face reddening with helpless rage. He glared at Samantha, who sat calmly a few rows away, her serene demeanor unsettling him more than any words could. Samantha's quiet strength revealed Walter's true weakness. He'd always believed power came from wealth and status, but now, stripped of his usual tools, he was just a man raging against a system he couldn't control. Passengers' judgmental stares bore into him, and for the first time, Walter felt the sting of isolation. Samantha, gazing out the window, tracked every development with precision. This wasn't about a seat anymore. It was about proving that true power lies in dignity and respect. She waited, knowing time would unravel Walter's facade. Walter's frustration boiled over. Standing abruptly, he shouted, "I want off this plane now!" His outburst startled the cabin, passengers turning to stare. He'd always controlled every room, but here, his tantrum only deepened his isolation. Michael Chen stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Sir, sit down. We're under a movement restriction." Walter jabbed a finger at Michael. "You can't keep me here. Do you know who I am? I'll sue this airline and her." Passengers shook their heads, whispering about his unraveling. Samantha remained seated, her silence louder than his shouts. She knew Walter needed to face the consequences of his actions to understand their weight. Michael stood firm. "Mr. Grayson, sit down or we'll take security measures." His tone left no room for argument. Walter hesitated, then sank into his seat, his face a mask of fury and shame. The cabin's scorn weighed on him, his once unshakable confidence crumbling. A woman's voice cut through the silence. "You're the problem, taking 2 seats and being rude," said a passenger in her 50s, her eyes blazing. Walter turned to retort but stopped, realizing he faced not one person but an entire cabin united against him. He tried to deflect. "She started this," but his words fell flat, met with cold stares and murmurs of disapproval. The woman continued, "We all saw you cause this. Instead of apologizing, you got worse." Passengers nodded, their support for Samantha clear. Walter's face paled as shame crept in. For the first time, he saw his actions through others' eyes, and it stung. Samantha stayed quiet, her gaze on the horizon. This wasn't about humiliating Walter, but about showing that no one can trample another's dignity. She felt no triumph, only resolve to keep fighting for justice. A new voice broke the tension. "Mr. Grayson, this ends now." James Rivera, Horizon Air's head of security, stepped forward, his presence commanding. In his mid-50s, James was known for his no-nonsense approach. He fixed Walter with a steely gaze. "Return to your assigned seat, or we'll escalate this." Walter froze, the weight of James's authority sinking in. Reluctantly, he gathered his blanket and shuffled to his proper seat, his face burning with humiliation. James turned to Samantha. "Ms. Carter, I'm sorry for this disruption." Samantha nodded, her composure unshaken. The apology mattered less than the message sent. Respect and dignity would always prevail. Walter, now in his seat, stared out the window, his pride in tatters. He'd lost more than a seat. He'd lost the illusion of untouchable power. As Samantha settled into seat 2A, the cabin seemed to breathe again. Her quiet dignity had shifted the atmosphere, earning her silent admiration. Walter, meanwhile, shrank under the weight of whispers and glances. Within minutes, videos of the incident spread online. Hashtags like #respect, Samantha, and #HorizonJustice trending across platforms. Walter's name became synonymous with entitlement, while Samantha's story inspired thousands. Walter's phone buzzed as connections restored on landing. Notifications flooded in, his name plastered across news sites, condemned for his behavior. He tried calling his lawyer, but even his usual allies distanced themselves, unwilling to touch the scandal. Samantha, gazing out the window, felt no joy in his downfall. Her victory was in the message dignity matters, and no one is above it. In the days that followed, Walter's empire crumbled. Business partners cut ties, his board forced him out, and his reputation lay in ruins. Alone in his Lake Forest mansion, he faced the truth his arrogance had cost him everything. Samantha's image haunted him, a woman who'd outshone him with quiet strength. Samantha, back at Horizon Air's Chicago headquarters, launched a sweeping reform. She introduced mandatory training on diversity, equity, and respect, creating a council to ensure fairness across the airline. Her policies earned praise, positioning Horizon Air as a leader in inclusion. She declined awards, insisting the focus remain on change, not her. "This isn't about me," she told reporters. "It's about building a world where dignity is non-negotiable." Her story became a case study in leadership, inspiring countless others. The boarding pass for Seat 2A sat on her desk, a reminder of the fight for justice. Walter, meanwhile, lived with his regret, his name a cautionary tale. The flight had changed them all, proving that true power lies in respect, courage, and the unwavering defense of dignity. What do you think of Samantha's approach? Would you have done the same? Share your thoughts below. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe for more stories of courage and justice. Thanks for listening.